Chapter 4. Milo Anderson. Wednesday, September 6th, 1:17 p.m. Milo sat in his bedroom, hating everything on the other side of the door. His dad was gone, like always. Beatrice, or Other Mother, as Milo called her, sometimes to her face, and always when she wasn't around, was left in charge of the house. Milo's dad worked as an analyst for Conway Industries. While most people who worked for the company lived on the island, or on the mainland, Milo's dad was out of the state more often than not. Milo figured his dad was good at his job, given the money he made. Beatrice was good at hers too, though her job was much easier since her main duties apparently were to spend his money and be a bitch. According to Beatrice, Milo just didn't appreciate her or see things from her perspective. She said that as far as hard jobs went, being a stepmother was right up there with being an air traffic controller. Milo thought that was bullshit, particularly since he was 17 and practically an adult. He wasn't sure what she did on any given day that could be deemed a parental responsibility, save for the occasional dinner she made. He'd given her plenty of chances, but she'd blown every one, starting with the day his dad announced they were getting married. She stood beside him, smiling like she was standing in an open vault, and said, "You can call me Mom." "Thanks, Beatrice, you evil bitch." She wasn't his mother and never would be. It was hard enough that his mom vanished without a trace when Milo was 12. Even harder when everyone thought she was one of many victims to jump from Tanner's Pass, and his father had her declared dead. Perhaps his father could replace her, but that didn't mean Milo had to accept Beatrice. He hated how she always tried to insert herself into his life and get him to call her Mom. The worst was when she started her sentences with, "Your father and I always," as though she had to constantly prove their union by broadcasting the great times they were having when Milo wasn't around, making it all too easy to imagine doing everything from spending money Milo's father actually had to work for to doing things in the bedroom Milo didn't even want to think about. Milo still remembered the minute he went from merely wishing she wasn't in his life to actually hating her. He had been caught getting drunk with Manny, and the next day had come home to a family meeting. He sat on one couch while his parents sat on the other. Beatrice said, "Did your mother bring you up to do that?" While his dad sat beside her, either wondering the same thing or acting like too much of a coward to say otherwise. Milo had hated her ever since. His mother wasn't an alcoholic, and she wasn't a drug addict, despite the rumors. She was clinically depressed and on several medications, any of which might explain her disappearance. Beatrice called from the other side of the door. "Milo, honey, I'm making lasagna. Would you like it with sausage or without?" Milo ignored her, like he had for the last hour she'd been trying to get his attention and draw him from his room. He almost felt bad, since she seemed uncharacteristically genuine at a time when he expected to see her at her worst. Beatrice didn't like it when things didn't go according to plan, especially when her plans included leaving the island for yet another weekend getaway. She and his father were scheduled for a weekend at the Fairmont Sonoma Mission Inn and Spa in California wine country. They were booked and ready to leave Friday afternoon as soon as his dad came home early from work. But they had to cancel everything when they heard about the shooting at school. The quiet house had heard maybe 500 words the entire weekend. His dad, the only one who even tried to make conversation, had to fly to New York for another conference on Tuesday. Beatrice's plastic personality made it pretty easy to see through her shallow attempts to mimic emotions. She couldn't give a shit about Milo and was probably marking red X's on a calendar somewhere, waiting for him to graduate and leave the house. She'd been trying to get him to go to Jessica's funeral service all weekend, but Milo didn't want to talk about it. Now she was trying to lure him out of his room with lasagna, which he loved. Hers was admittedly good, and Milo could smell the scent of sauce she'd been cooking all day traveling up the stairs and into his bedroom. Milo was tempted to leave the room just long enough to get some lasagna when his cell phone rang. He hoped it wasn't Alex again. He'd been ignoring Alex's messages, not even bothering to listen to them. He couldn't hear Alex's voice right now. It was too soon, the horror still raw. How could he possibly remain friends with the son of the man who murdered his friends and classmates? It was bad enough that he saw Jessica's dying eyes every time he went to sleep. He grabbed the phone off his nightstand and saw that it wasn't Alex. It was Jesus, Manny's older brother, who'd come back from Stanford University to be with his family. They'd talked briefly Saturday when he learned Manny was in a coma. "Hey, Milo," Jesus said. "How's it hanging over at Casa de la Anderson? Other mother still being a bitch?" Milo felt a slight flush of shame as the scent of lasagna bled beneath the door. "Nah, she's being all right. For the moment, anyway. How's Manny?" "Wish I knew," Jesus said. "The doctors aren't saying shit. He's still in a coma. Might make it, might not. Changes every hour. Dad stopped asking. Mom can't keep from crying. We're taking turns hanging out at the hospital just in case he wakes. Right now is my shift." "I'm sorry, man," Milo said. Jesus sighed. "Yeah." There was a long, awkward silence. Milo wasn't sure what to say, but Jesus didn't seem like he was in a hurry to hang up. After a while, Milo gathered enough courage to say what he had wanted to say on Saturday. "Hey, Jesus, can you call me as soon as Manny wakes up?" "Of course, man. I mean immediately. I want to be there as soon as I can see him." After a pause, Milo added, "Before other people start talking to him." An edge of concern crept into Jesus' throat. "What's going on? What aren't you saying?" "It's probably nothing," Milo said. "But I can't stop wondering something. Right before Mr. Heller blew his brains out, he knelt down next to Manny. He looked like he was sorry he shot him. Like he didn't know what he was doing or perhaps hadn't meant to hit Manny, I'm not sure. But the weird thing was that he said something to Manny." "Said something? What did he say?" "I don't know, that's what I want to ask him." "You and me both," Jesus said. "You and me both."